So besides T. Higgins, another receiver could potentially be moved this offseason, and that is San Francisco wide receiver Brandon Aiyuk. Team is trying to shop the wide receiver now that he's in his final year of his rookie contract, set to make $14.1 million. And for obvious reasons, the biggest one is just they cannot extend them with too many big contracts on the team already with Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, Trent Williams, Nick Bosa, Fred Warner. And you also think about the future too with Brock Purdy potentially if he still pans out for another year or two, he'll be getting a big contract. So potentially, there's going to be big players potentially be getting moved around in the next few years, and the first big piece is Brandon Aiyuk. Looking at his stats, no doubt he's coming off a career year, best of his career so far. 75 receptions for 1,342 yards, 7 touchdowns. Each year, he just keeps getting better and better and better. Receiving wise, going back to 2020, 748, 2021, 826, 2022, when he finally surpasses 1,000 yards with 1,015, and then we just talked about for 2023, over 1,300 receiving yards. In his grand total of his career, he has 269 receptions for just under 4,000 receiving yards, 25 touchdowns. So no doubt he has earned his contract, the former 25th overall pick in 2020 by the San Francisco 49ers. He has earned his money, and no doubt he's going to be asking for top dollar for his his ability. And it's for this one, I don't know what he's going to get. I'm not going to say 30 plus million like Tyreek Hill or potentially Justin Jefferson could get those guys, but I can see probably the mid-20s, no doubt. I mean, pushing that potentially. Would I be entirely shocked if he got a big contract like that? No, but he's going to be pushing somewhere in the 20s, no doubt, for a deal. And of course, again, San Francisco just can't afford that. They just have too many big contracts, tied up to many other players. So they're trying to shop them around. A couple of teams that we do know, we heard, at least for today, I heard the Steelers was one that there was reports or rumors that they were discussing. Of course, we saw a couple of days ago was the report of the Jacksonville Jaguars, whether if Jacksonville offer the trade or not, but in terms of a package deal was the 17th overall pick and wide receiver Zay Jones for Brandon Aiyuk. And of course, Brandon Aiyuk is still in San Francisco, so we know that deal did not pan out. But it's quite interesting what the destinations could be for Aiyuk. I think one concern that people should look at, and this, not trying to bash Aiyuk. I think he's a great receiver, no doubt. He keeps getting better and better and better each year. Is he this good because of he's a legit good great wide receiver, or is he a product of San Francisco? We have to remember where he's coming from. He is, in terms of offensive talent, probably the best offense in the NFL. You think about the head coach, Kyle Shanahan, one of the best offensive coaches in the NFL. You look at the pieces around him with, like what we just named about, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey. Whatever you want to think of Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy had a great season this year. You look at, I focus on defense because it doesn't affect him at all, but just look at in terms of offensive pieces, he is star power. Kyle Juszczyk, gotta give him some love too. Pro Bowl fullback as well. So you look at what he's surrounded with. Yeah, he's putting up these good stats, especially the last 2 years where he has back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons because of what he's surrounded by. He doesn't have to worry about being double covered because teams have to worry about George Kittle on one side and Deebo Samuel. Now, guess what? You have to think about Christian McCaffrey catching the ball in the backfield. So, teams like I see thrown around is like the Carolina Panthers, the New England Patriots, the Arizona Cardinals. I've seen potential spots. There should be a little bit pause for concern of him going to a situation where he's not going to be paired up with an elite player or a great player alongside him. You look at Carolina, they just traded for Deontay Johnson, but is that going to be a huge difference maker? Is teams going to fear Deontay Johnson? Johnson is a solid wide receiver. He's a good wide receiver, but let's face it, we can all agree he's not a Deebo Samuel. We have that saying the obvious there. Look at Arizona. What do they have? Their best wide receiver they have on the roster right now is Wilson, the rookie from last year. Had a solid season, but not anything. Maybe if they had Marquise Brown there, I say, okay, maybe it makes somewhat sense, but Marquise Brown isn't there anymore. He's with the Kansas City Chiefs for 1 year. So you go there, he's all alone. Carolina, he's all alone. What's other teams? New England Patriots, again, all alone. You have Kendrick Bourne, you have Juju Smith-Schuster. These aren't playmakers. These are okay to average wide receivers, and this is not the situation that Brandon Aiyuk is used to. He's used to star power, and that's what it is in San Francisco. That's what it is, and there should be a little bit of pause, a concern of if he is the standalone number one wide receiver and there's no great talent around him, is he going to put up the numbers that he has been in the last 2 years? I mean, I think I'm gonna say Calvin Ridley numbers. I mean, if you look at Brandon Aiyuk's numbers in 2022, it's awfully similar to what Calvin Ridley did with Jacksonville this year. I mean, he did go over 1,000 yards, but maybe wasn't that guy that they were expecting to be. So I can definitely see Brandon Aiyuk getting a little bit over 1,000 yards, but I don't know if I can see him being a 1,300 plus yard receiver for the year if he's just a standalone number one wide receiver with no help around him. Of course, if you can go to let's say hypothetical, just saying. Let's say Buffalo or Cincinnati or even just other solid places like for my list too, like the Baltimore Ravens, the Houston Texans, even Jacksonville. I'll throw Jacksonville out there. The Steelers that we just mentioned. Those are spots where yes, he can put up I feel comfortable with him putting up the 1,300 yards or getting back to that season wise because he has more talent around him. Steelers, George Pickens, that makes sense. Jacksonville Jaguars. Well, I mean, say what you want, but they just signed Gabe Davis. He is a threat. Christian Kirk is also on the team as well, so there is help around them. You look at the Houston Texans, Tank Dell, Nico Collins, Dalton Schultz, solid. It's great. I think great wide receivers, young wide receivers. I mean, Nico Collins had a phenomenal season this past year. I think he had over 1,200 receiving yards. Tank Dell really emerged as a shocker for an absolute steal for the Texans. Unfortunate that he got hurt. But pieces like that where it's okay, Brandon, you can open things up. Baltimore Ravens with Zay Flowers and now newly acquired Derrick Henry there with also, on top of that, you're getting a lead tight end as well and Mark Andrews. And also, playing with Lamar Jackson as well. Those destinations make sense. Is he going to go there? I mean, I think the Steelers could be a possibility. If you are trying to look for a first-round pick potentially for Aiyuk, if that is something of what they're trying to do, you're going to have to go to a team that has a late first-round pick like the Steelers, like the Ravens, like the Texans. You're not going to get one of these teams that have a early to mid first-round pick. It's just not. I just don't think it's worth it. I do believe Brandon Aiyuk is a great wide receiver. I'm not sure if I would give up a top 15 pick for him. I just don't see it. I think that might be a too steep of an asking price on top of not even just getting a first-round pick, but other compensation on top of that. And even on top of all that as well, the contract. What is he asking for? What is the money per year? What is that? And it's just too many what ifs. Kind of similar to Lamar when they put the franchise tag on him, the special one, not exclusive franchise tag where they were demanding 2 first-round. If a team did want to sign him, they would essentially have to give up 2 first-round picks and the max contract, a top dollar contract, whatever he was asking for, and teams were reluctant. And not, maybe a little bit apples to oranges talking about Lamar and Brandon Aiyuk, but it could be a similar situation where teams are a little bit reluctant to give up big compensation like that and also have to sign into a long-term extension and not knowing what he wants exactly. But I think for these teams, like the Steelers, Jaguars, Texans, Ravens, I think the plunge is worth it. I mean, the first round pick, I don't think it really means too much to them being, making the playoff push. Again, I think an amazing spot would be the Houston Texans with C.A. Stroud. He had arguably the best rookie season for a quarterback in history, on top of Nico Collins, Tank Dell. They merged pretty well with them, and also too, let's not forget they just traded for Joe Mixon last week. So it's, I mean, you look at that on paper, you look at that team all together and insert Brandon Aiyuk in that spot. That is a pretty dangerous offense, to be honest. And if he can, especially if C.J. Stroud can build off of what he did, even if he plateaus and he gives you what he did in his rookie year. His rookie year was still phenomenal. I mean, there was people even going as far as to say that he should be in the MVP conversation for what he did. So even if he just plateaus and had the same season he did his rookie year, that's already amazing, no doubt. So I think Texans would be a phenomenal spot for him. You look at the Ravens, another one I just mentioned, for just pair him up with Zay Flowers, and again, Derrick Henry. You look at how close they were to get into the Super Bowl. They were just a touchdown away from tying the game, 17-10. You can look back at the fumble from Zay Flowers that really just cost them the game and really hurt them, crushed them. So you insert someone like Brandon Aiyuk in that lineup with, again, Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews, Derrick Henry, and Lamar Jackson, saying the obvious with that too. That could be monumental, no doubt. Jacksonville, I mean, they are looking for, I think, a legitimate number one wide receiver. Is Brandon Aiyuk a legitimate number one wide receiver? I mean, definitely more so than Christian Kirk and Gabe Davis on the team, so he would be that, and obviously what you're be paying for, but they're also kind of paying top dollar. Not say top dollar, but they are paying a decent amount of money to Gabe Davis. I think it's around $13 plus million a year. I think $59 million was the total deal. Or at least in that range, could go up to that. So I mean, they paid decent money for Gabe Davis. If initially people thought they paid too much money for Christian Kirk, and so far he's kind of lived up to that contract. So would they do it for Brandon Aiyuk? It's gonna be difficult, but no doubt Trevor Lawrence needs a receiver like that. Unfortunately, the Calvin Ridley experiment did not go well. He did go over 1,000 yards, but just unfortunately, it didn't pan out with that team. I mean, other outliers you could throw out there too is the New York Giants, with Brian Daboll just being desperate for wide receiver, just not having. I mean, even like last time they had a good great wide receiver is Odell Beckham Jr. I mean, that's really what it is. I mean, you have Darren Waller, but there's reports of him contemplating retirement, and he just didn't look, the guy that's kind of just been injury riddled for most of his career. Only had 2 great seasons, not too long ago, but in his whole span of his career, just not really doing too much. So, I mean, could the Giants be desperate? I mean, obviously not going to get the first round pick for Aiyuk. Then there's reports of them potentially trying to trade up to get JJ McCarthy. Could they give up something else to try and get him? Potentially. I mean, they just traded for Brian Burns from the Panthers, but I mean, in terms of a team that desperately needs wide receiver help, it's the Giants. I mean, this might be the make or break this year for Daboll in that front office, because I just don't see them be able to go and have a bad season once again. And I think Brandon Aiyuk would definitely go a long way for Daniel Jones or whoever is under helm in that spot. So there is definitely tons of spots that potentially goes, but I see this playing similar to the T. Higgins situation. When I start off the video with this one, mentioning another receiver that's on the move, there's a good chance that both of them stay where they are because the team's not one give up compensation. It's unlikely that they're going to be franchised. For T. Higgins at least, franchised for a second year in a row. It could Brandon Aiyuk get franchised after the season? It could be a possibility, but again, with the cap situation and what the wide receivers are getting for the franchise tag, unlikely. I mean, I'm pretty sure. It does factor in with Pro Bowls and so forth, but at least for T. Higgins, he's making for the franchise tag for wide receivers is $20+ million, or at least close to that. So, and of course, every single year it increases. So, for Brandon Aiyuk, you're looking at plus $20 million for a franchise tag if they decide to do it after the season. I don't see that. So teams aren't going to give up a ton, a first round pick or whatever, if they know that potentially Brandon Aiyuk is going to be a free agent in 2025, and they can just pick him up for, in terms of compensation wise, nothing, and just signing him. That's probably I think, to me, that's where I won't be shocked if for both of them that happens, where they just stay because the market isn't that big for them because of just waiting. It's just a waiting game. It's they have all the rest of the teams have the time in the world. The Bengals and the 49ers don't. The time is ticking. It's running out. They have to try and get something for him before they just walk and get nothing from him. And I kind of do the same situation potentially for Brandon Aiyuk, where teams just decline. If it's outrageous, they'll just wait. And I think I guess don't be surprised if they don't get I guess don't be surprised if the compensation isn't as good as maybe people kind of imagine in their minds because of that. But I think the most likely in terms of rating top destinations for Brandon Aiyuk going into the season, I have San Francisco number 1 because of just teams not going to be willing to give up that compensation, knowing he is a free agent after this year. Again, small chance of a franchise tag, but unlikely for this one. But again, other spots, I think I think the best fit for him is playoff caliber teams. I think horrible spots is once again stating the obvious. It's just teams like Carolina, Arizona. What else? I did throw out the Giants, but that'd be another terrible spot, I think, for him for his career, where I just don't think he's going to thrive, or he'll be the wide receiver that they're expecting, because he just doesn't have the supporting cast around him to help him, as opposed to what I just mentioned for these playoff caliber teams where they already have set in stone pieces around that he can help elevate, and they also can help take pressure off of him. So I for Brandon Aiyuk, I am a tad bit worried for his career potential, stat wise, and how he's going to be moving forward. Money wise, he'll get the money, no doubt. Teams will throw the money, the contract at him. But in terms of just success and as a player, I do worry with these other teams that we just mentioned, the lower tier teams, that he's going to fall flat on his face, and people are going to be maybe, kind of a little bit shocked if he doesn't get over 1,000 yards, and he does struggle because of the situation. But no doubt, it's been pretty interesting to see what I kept saying, just between him and T. Higgins, what's going to happen with this offseason. But yeah, my final answer is I just think both these guys are going to stay put, and they'll play their final years at their respective teams.